Hey guys, American Pizza Books here. I am back today with another book review. Today I'm reviewing a book called The Black Farm by Elias Witherow. You can see the name there. Now, I had not known about this author. I actually found out about this author through scrolling through Amazon, pretty much. I'm on Amazon quite a lot, just scrolling through and trying to find new authors and new books and stuff. It's kind of a bad habit of mine because then I start compiling a list and it's never ending. But I came across this one, and the title interested me, and as well as like the cover interested me. So I decided to give it a read. I had gotten this a while ago. I'd ordered it around the beginning of this year, and it's kind of just been sitting around. And it's not that I didn't intend to like not read it, obviously, but I just have a lot to read, and I mean, you all know the nature of like TBR lists and stuff like that. So, but basically the premise of The Black Farm, and before I even get into it, I will say this is a pretty dark book. I don't usually feel the need to give like any sort of like whatever you'd call it, trigger warnings or whatever. I think that when it comes to horror, you should kind of expect like some pretty like dark and brutal topics. But I will say for this one, if you're sensitive to the issue of like suicide or violence or anything like that, or sexual assault, you should probably skip this one. But if you can handle all that stuff, then I would say proceed. But the premise of this book is that there's this couple, and they've kind of been struck with a lot of misfortunes. They lost their child to, I believe it was miscarriage. Nick, the main character that we follow in this book, he's lost his job, and just things have not been going his way. His wife is depressed. They're both depressed. And so what they decide to do is they decide to basically commit suicide at the same time. So basically they're pulling like almost like a Romeo and Juliet in a way, in a weird, dark, twisted way. But they both decide to commit suicide, and basically just to end it all and to end the suffering and the pain that they're going through. The opening is it was pretty dark. Like I got pretty depressed while reading it. It was pretty sad. And then they're expecting to just fade off into nothingness, just fade off into just a black abyss where nothing exists, just into nothing basically. And what ends up happening is they end up going to this place called the Black Farm. Now what the Black Farm is it's kind of like an in-between. It's an in-between, like between heaven and hell. And it's where they call them suicidals. It's where suicidals go, people who kill themselves, and then they're sent here. And basically, it's portrayed as being like almost kind of like a purgatory, essentially, because in this world, in the Black Farm, there's like creatures. They're called pigborn, and what pigborns are is they're a offspring of humans that ended up there, and pigs. And there's this overruling entity known as the pig. And he's basically, I guess you could say, like the god of Black Farm that others worship and stuff. And, like women will be brought there to breed with the pig, and then hence pigborn. So there's pigborn that are trying to kill the suicidals or capture them and torture them. And there's like a cult that's dedicated to worshiping the pig. So there's a lot of stuff in this world that can bring harm onto the suicidals that are there. And if you get killed in this world, you basically are just brought right back to the Black Farm, like right back. So like I said, it's basically like a never-ending purgatory. Like if you try to kill yourself in this world, you'll just be brought back to the Black Farm. So the only way to really escape is to feed the pig, which is basically you feed yourself to like the pig, the like the god of this place. And depending on a variety of things, you will either get a second chance at life and be brought back into your own body on Earth, or you will be sent to hell. So that's kind of like the lore around this place. You also have a character named Danny who is kind of running the place and stuff, and He was a pretty interesting character. We get some scenes with him, although I'd be interested to know like more about him and how he ended up being where he is, but I won't get into that yet. But that's essentially the premise, and we follow Nick, and he's trying to find his wife on the Black Farm, and we see him go through a lot of terrifying shit, and we see him go through a lot of growth as well, which I guess I'll get into the characters in this book and how the characters were. I thought the characters were really, really well done. Nick is an extremely flawed character. Like, he's kind of not a great person at the beginning of the book, and you realize that about like 70 or so pages in. He's kind of reflecting on his life and stuff, and you realize that he's actually quite a selfish person. But as the book goes on, you start to see him really start to redeem himself and grow and realize his mistakes. And he was a very good character. I really liked Nick. He was sympathetic. Even though he was a very flawed character, he wasn't so flawed to the point to where he was just unlikable and irredeemable. I really liked Nick as a character. I mentioned Danny, who was kind of running the show. Obviously, he's not the pig, but he's kind of like almost like second in command, sort of, in a way. He's almost like the director of things, if basically. And he was a pretty interesting character. Like I said, I would like to know more about him and how he ended up in the position that he has on the Black Farm. And it was really hard to tell, because I wouldn't say he's a bad character per se. I mean, he's definitely, I would say he has some malevolent like feels about him, but he doesn't strike me as being like all bad. So I would definitely like to get more backstory on him as a character. There is a sequel to this book, actually, The Return to Black Farm, and I definitely will be getting that soon, but, maybe his character is explored more in that book. If you've read The Black Farm or The Return to Black Farm, let me know. But I liked him as a character. Nick's wife, I believe her name was Jessica. I got less of a sense from her than I did from, like, Nick, because obviously we're not inside her head, and we don't really see her for a good chunk of the book, because she's, Nick is trying to find her. And so I didn't really get a great feel for Jessica, but she definitely felt also like a fleshed out character when she was around. She didn't just feel like a cardboard cutout or anything. So her character was fine. Again, I didn't get a great feel for her character. Maybe we might get more in the second book. There were a few other characters. There was Kevin and Trent. They're people that Nick stumbles upon while he's searching for his wife, and then him and his wife meet back up with them later on in the book. And you get to know about them too, and it was kind of disappointing because we don't really get to see, we don't see where they end up or what's happened to them by the end of this book. Again, maybe that's explored in the next book, but I was hoping that we would get more from them because I really liked their characters too. Kevin is a 15, 16-year-old teenage boy, and we get his backstory, and it's really, really sad. He was kind of in an abusive household, and apparently he had a crush on this girl, and his crush and stuff, this crush that he had on this girl kind of got him through rough times because he just really liked this girl. And then I guess when he decided to ask her out or talk to her, she just didn't even acknowledge him at all, and that just caused his depression and stuff to just come crashing down. So he ended up killing himself and going to the Black Farm. So it was really sad. I mean, there's an overall grim, sad tone to this book, as there should be, given the subject matter, but still, that was him. And then Trent, we find out, is he's kind of messed his life up a bit. Not just a bit, a lot. And he had kind of just failed, and he had a son, and he just felt like a failure. He just felt like a failure as a father. And so he ended up, obviously killing himself as well, and then ending up on the Black Farm. So we got to know both characters, and they both felt very, very real and human to me. So I hope that we get to know more about them maybe in the next book. Not know more about them, but know like where they're at, where they ended up and stuff. There were a few other characters that we came across. There's representatives, I can't talk today, from both heaven and hell. I can't remember their names at the moment, but we do get a passage of the book with them where Nick basically finds them and is like talking with them and stuff. And I thought that those two were both pretty well portrayed, because you've got like a representative from heaven and you've got a representative from hell that's kind of like watching over the Black Farm and stuff and keeping these people almost like in fear, basically, to an extent. So that was really well done. Yeah, so I mean, I would say that as far as character work goes, I thought this was really good. You know, for a first time reading this author, it made a good impression on me as far as the character work goes. I thought the world, because this had almost like it was definitely more of a horror story, but it almost had like a quasi, almost like fantasy type feel, like a dark fantasy type feel. And I thought the lore around this story was really, really interesting. I thought the author did a really good job of building this atmosphere and this place, this dimension, and these like creatures and monstrosities in this world. Like there are some scenes in here where he's describing some of the creatures, and it's really, really like just grotesque and disturbing and gross, and it was really well done. There's quite a few grotesque scenes in this book. It's definitely, again, not for the faint of heart. A lot of gore in this, a lot of I mean, if you read it, you'll see what I mean. But yeah, I thought the world building was really good. The pacing was really good. I never felt at any point in this book that it had a slow, dull moment at all. I thought that every moment counted. You know, the writing, the only criticism that I could give it is, you know, the writing itself, like from a technical standpoint, there was nothing wrong with it. It did its job and it transported me into the story and served as a good medium into the story. It was more of an aesthetic criticism, because I don't know who the editor was, or like if the author even had an editor. I think it says that he did on Amazon, but there were quite a few typos in this book and grammatical errors, and I kept noticing them. And most of the time, I could tell what the author was wanting to write. Like he would leave out a word in a sentence that he was writing, or he would like use a word in the wrong tense. But like usually I could tell what he was going for, so I was able to basically fill in the blank. But you know, I did keep noticing that, and sometimes I'd have to be like, wait, what was, and then, oh, okay, that's what he was trying to write. Okay, so again, it's not really the writing itself necessarily, it's more just like the aesthetic, you know, because I don't think that whoever edited this book, if there even was an editor, or maybe he put it through like one of those, like, not even like, he didn't even get someone to edit, he just got like, put it through like some sort of editing, like self-editing program or something, and it didn't catch some typos and grammatical errors. But, you know, that's really the only criticism I can really give the book. But otherwise, as far as like a horror story goes, I would give this probably like 5 out of 5. I love the world. I love the characters. The pacing is good. I think that he did a really good job of maintaining an atmosphere of not just suspense, but just, you know, darkness in multiple senses. And, you know, it's in a lot of ways, it's a really, really depressing read. There is, technically speaking, a happy ending, sort of, but there's obviously a sequel, so more shit goes down, so, I see where that goes. But yeah, I just thought it was really good. And I as far as like, I feel like there was a theme there, and I guess you could say there's themes of like personal like reflection and stuff, and not appreciating what you really have until you don't have it, and I know that's kind of a cliche, but still, I think that was a really big theme in this book, because a lot of these people don't really realize how good it is to be alive, you know, until they don't necessarily have that option anymore. So it almost kind of, in a way, it reminded me of like the Saw franchise, like where it's like, you know, Jigsaw will take these people who don't appreciate their life and then put them through like fucked up, like, you know, circumstances and stuff. It kind of reminded me of that. Not necessarily like not necessarily like the same, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, not the same like methodology, but like the same sort of like theme, basically. So anyways, that's it for this one. Let me know what you guys think, or have you read this book at all? I know it's kind of it's a relatively unknown author, I think, but if you haven't, if you like horror, I'd highly recommend this one. So that's it for this one. Peace, and you guys have a good day.